This all took place a few days ago, and I'm still unsure what went on. I was sitting in my room playing some Xbox when I heard what sounded like a dying animal coming from outside my window. I had heard it a few times earlier that day, but this time it was much louder and more aggressive. This of course freaked me out, so I went outside to investigate. For context, my window leads to my backyard, which is right next to a laneway, separated only by a crappy little fence. I walk outside and head to where my window is. I found my dog absolutely losing it at the fence. He was barking and scratching. The strange noise had stopped, but I realized that a bunch of the other dogs in my street were also going crazy. Initially, I thought maybe some of the strays were fighting, and one got injured. I stuck my head over the fence to have a look, but there was nothing there. I calmed my dog down and headed inside to the front window that overlooks the street. Mind you, the window is quite hard to spot from the street, and that's what makes the next part extra creepy. The dogs in my street were all still going crazy, so I looked out the front window, expecting to see some dogs chasing each other or something like that. All that I saw was a strange-looking man walking down the road. His back was turned to me, and I stared for a bit. I was trying to analyze the situation. That's when out of nowhere, he turned full 180 and made direct eye contact with me. When his eyes met mine, I nearly crapped myself and quickly ran from the window. I gathered my thoughts for a second or two and decided to look back to see if he was still standing there. But nothing. No one. He was gone. The time between me leaving the window to me looking back to see nothing was too short for him to have left. This whole experience left me quite shaken and confused to what I actually witnessed. I stayed with my friend for a couple of weeks in the town I grew up in. She works at a restaurant, without giving away too many details about the location. It's a plaza with a river nearby, a movie theater, restaurants, and boutiques. We entered through the parking garage, which has 3 stories, both elevators and stairs. This is important. She had a 6-hour shift, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and walk around before eating at the restaurant she worked at. I was sitting at the bar on the corner alone, listening to music. This is when a bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on that was incredibly dirty and tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, "Are you? I like your. Is anyone sitting?" But keep in mind it was all incredibly muttered. I'm just guessing what he was trying to say. All of this was said while he was switching back and forth between looking into my eyes and staring at my chest. I told him multiple times I couldn't understand what he was saying. After a bit of back and forth, I put the headphones back around my neck and he left me alone. I told my friend about what happened. I tried to shake it off as an isolated incident. But if this is where the story ended, I wouldn't be writing this, unfortunately. About an hour or so later, I see someone approach the bar to my left out of the corner of my eye. I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look, but somehow I knew it was him. My heart started beating really fast. I texted my friend and told her I felt really sketched out. I wanted to believe that I was just misreading things, and I was only letting my anxiety get the best of me. But I couldn't shake the feeling. About 30 minutes later, she gets off work. As we walked towards the parking garage stairs to get to her car, I saw him sitting on the bench, waiting for me. The benches aren't super close to the elevators, but they are closer to the restaurant if anything. The second I spotted him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage and started running towards us. I was face to face with him by the time we got to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to her car, and another employee escorted us to the car as well. The employee told us that there are a lot of cases of homeless people who walk around the restaurants. So I presume he was homeless and just walking in and out of the restaurants until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful I trusted my gut and that I saw him. I don't know what would have happened to us if I didn't see him at first, but I don't want to find out. This happened a couple of weeks ago. I was heading home from my friend's house one night. It was maybe around 11:30 p.m. My friend lives about 25 minutes away from me, and the fastest way to get home is if I take the back roads. I do live in a small rural town. I was driving home with one other car about 4 lengths in front of me. I'm about 5 minutes away from my house when I see the car's taillights suddenly break. Then, the car speeds off and turns off a road I couldn't see anymore. I didn't think too much of it. Maybe an animal ran out in front of them, and they didn't want to hit it. As I get to the part of the road where the car slammed on their brakes, a man, a big man, probably 6+ feet tall, in a black hoodie, jumps in front of my car, flailing his arms and yelling at me. I swerve to the right not to hit him, and look in my rear view, and now he's gone. This road had houses, but where this man was, there were none. There was no streetlight, no broken down car, nothing. I raced home and called my husband, who was about 2.5 hours away at an event, and he wouldn't be home till after midnight. I told him what happened and how he just disappeared. I was terrified to get out of my car and walk into our house. He stayed on the phone with me until I got inside, and he immediately headed home. There's been a lot of weird break-ins around my area lately, and people trying to steal cars. Luckily, I've seen too many true crime docs to where I would have stopped, but I avoided taking that way home for now, and if I do, it's all I think about. This was back in January, earlier this year. My friend and I had just started working on our film project and were getting ideas of locations to shoot the film. We drove to a swinging bridge about an hour away from our hometown. It was your usual unsturdy bridge that was about 400 feet long and 60 feet above the water. This bridge was only meant for walking, no running, no biking. It was parallel to another bridge, one that was made for vehicles. My friend and I got a couple shots of the bridge itself before we made our way to the other side. This is where the train tracks were and a neighborhood. About halfway across the bridge, we heard yelling coming from the other one. We looked, and it appeared to be a lady waving her arms like she was trying to get our attention. She called out a name, what I thought was Hayden or Aiden, which both of those names were neither close to mine or my friends. We yelled back that we weren't them, thinking that would end the conversation. The woman just stood there, staring at us. We tried to shrug it off as we thought it had been settled. But then the woman takes off at full speed, running across the bridge, in the same direction we're going. We thought it was strange, but we just laughed it off and carried on. We made it to the other side of the bridge and began shooting footage near the train tracks. I know it's unsafe, but this was a regular crossing point for the bridge trail. While we were in the middle of the scene, I heard a familiar voice yell from behind me. It was the same woman, yelling the same thing. She stood on top of the hill that was across the tracks. Again, we yelled back that we didn't know her and that we're not who she thinks we are. This woman takes off running once again, but this time it was towards us. This frightened us because why would this woman need to get to us that bad? My friend and I quickly grabbed our things and headed for the swinging bridge. We knew we weren't supposed to run across, so instead we walked super fast, and that made the bridge sway. It was like our fight or flight kicked in. The lady had caught up to the start of the bridge by the time we made it halfway across. She was still yelling, but this time in a hateful voice. This was when I turned around to look and see how far the distance between us was. The lady had stopped at the start of the bridge, and I noticed she was holding something behind her back. Even though she wasn't running after us, we still continued to bolt across the bridge. We turned back once we reached the other side to see the woman was still standing there. She was fiddling with something in her hands. My friend pulled out her phone and began recording the woman. This made her turn back immediately, and she walked the other way. We never found out why she chased us, or what she was even holding in her hand. Sometimes I think back and wonder if maybe she needed help, but why not scream for help? I just find it strange that after we told her multiple times that we weren't the people she thought we were, she still followed us.